So I work at Disqus, which is one of the millions of plugins that's available on WordPress. Some people may know us as Disqus. Since we are a discussion platform, we spelled our name very kitschily and have been paying the dues for it ever since 2007. So specifically, our company has been around for probably 6 years or so. I don't know, show your hands if people who've heard of our platform before. Cool, a few of you, and probably good that more of you haven't. So traditionally, people will sort of know us as a commenting platform, and we are, and this is sort of kind of an example of kind of a core direction that Disqus is moving into, which is this idea of discovery. And in terms of, I know what we're going to be talking about later on in terms of powering or making websites more powerful, Disqus really focuses on making communities more powerful. So just to kind of give this silly vanity slide, what is Disqus? Again, it's a commenting platform, and why are we here? Well, in addition to kind of having a pretty broad breadth across the internet, across like 2.5 million sites, it turns out that we have over 1 million downloads. Our WordPress plugin has over 1 million downloads. So who knows if they're all active, but something like 40% of our existing base today uses WordPress. Some of like the larger ones that you might know that are probably using VIP are folks like Fortune and CNN, CS Local. So that's sort of where we are. Why we think that comments are pretty important. Our friends over at Chartbeat did an analysis several months back that was featured in Ad Age. If anybody wants that link, I can give it to you guys later. In March, they did an analysis, which the colors here are terrible, but what they found is that below the fold is a really, really important part of your website. They found out that most of the engagement, 67% of engagement on a site, in fact, happens below the fold. So people read content, the editorial content at top, but tend to spend a lot of their time below the fold engaging. So that's really important. Those happen to be, on average, your most engaged users. They happen to be spending time kind of in the comment section, reading content, voting, interacting with other people, connecting with other people. So what we sort of see as kind of Disqus's currency, if you will, is this idea of the people who participate, the comments themselves, and the content that a publisher produces. Now, whether you're an active blogger or you have a site that has a blog, there's a lot of content on there that you want people to discover. Well, our main objective is to sort of maximize that time below the fold. And there's a lot of things that we can do to make sure that people have a good experience down there. So things that we think about to improve that below the fold experience are things like retention and recirculation, reactivation, getting people sort of back into conversation after they may have participated and left or just left. But maybe their influences are still there. Another key thing that we've been focusing on is promotion of content. And that takes the form of, it could be organic content, it could even be promoted content. And we really measure ourselves against sort of some metrics like things like time on site, page views per visit, reducing bounce rate to make sure that people are really attracted to your content and frankly coming back. So there's this kind of loyalty component around returning to your site. So on the topic of discovery, as I mentioned, which is kind of a core mission of ours, some things that we've layered in, and I pulled off kind of a famous name, Fred Wilson here. What we've done is we've sort of improved how we surface individuals and kind of display the stuff that they've been producing. We show, comments, how many people follow him, how many people he follows, and you can actually click into those different areas to see, who finds him influential and who he finds to be influential. And what we've done as kind of a core component of a comment thread. So traditionally, you'll see kind of the discussion tab where the conversation happens. When you click over to the My Disqus tab, not only do you see a little notification number, which is a reactivation tool When you make a comment and somebody replies to that comment, we show you this little notification, no matter what site you're on that uses Disqus, to try to draw you back into that conversation. So in this notifications item, you can click on that and see all the activity around the comments that you've made. But you can also see Fred Wilson and other influencers of yours in the Now in My Network. So this is really a way for us to, again, below the fold, help you kind of discover not only like the content that you've been looking for, but some things that the activity around people who influence you, like where they've been and what kind of sites that they find to be influential. As an extension to that, if you don't find yourself in the thread too often, what we do now is we surface, if you're a commenter, we surface this Disqus digest. And it's optional for users, but we tend to opt people in to begin with, and they can kind of choose the frequency or turn off entirely this mechanism. But what it does is it allows you to start conversations, you see number 2 up there, as a conversation that you'd want to follow. It also brings in conversations of people you follow. So if you could see behind that, you'd see that it was my digest. Chris Dixon is somebody that I follow, and it looks like he created a post and he's begun to kind of participate in that conversation. So it's a way, in fact, we sent it out the next morning, it's a way for us to kind of reactivate people and help them find the places their influencers have been participating. With the overall idea of kind of improving the user experience to make people like really happy about the communities they visit and participate in. As an extension to that, when you're on a site, again, next to the discussion tab, what we've done for publishers is really try to help surface the most discussionally relevant content that exists on your site. So we've had this in many forms through like our own kind of custom widget recipes that we've made available to publishers, that we have like a GitHub repository that you can kind of use and surface on different parts of your site. But we found it was pretty darn important to actually make this kind of a core component to help you find top discussions as well as top commenters. And you can kind of see a little bit of information like the number of comments, how many stars, and so you get a better sense of why it's getting surfaced there, because it's really resonated from sort of less a page view perspective, but more of like, this is really interesting content that should be like the next thing that you read on the site that you care about. And this is actually probably the biggest change that's happened to Disqus, at least in 2013, if not for the last several years. Disqus introduced a discovery model. And if you remember that kind of bubble situation I showed you on the first slide, what that represents is how Disqus, kind of a physical manifestation of how Disqus kind of surfaces content that's trending or happens to be relevant to a significant number of people in the community. And if you go to disqus.com, you can actually see like a visualization of these things popping up and these conversations kind of like hitting that relevancy quotient. What we've begun to do is help publishers recirculate traffic, highlight comments and commenters, which I'll show you in a second, optimally make money through promoted content, control, of course, any promoted content you might need, and it's actually really simple to turn on. There's a couple of different configurations. You know, we don't feel that promoted content should be something that we should force on publishers. So what we've done is created a couple different configurations. Now, you may be like a .org or just aren't interested in kind of promoted content on your site. So what we've enabled is this kind of organic recirculation recommendation widget. And what it does is it surfaces, again, like top articles, shows a little bit like a nugget of the comment, as well as the comment count, so you can get a little bit of a feeling of why it showed up there. And what we do is we actually tailor it to the individual. So when I go to that page, I will likely see something different than everybody else in the room, based on the user patterns that I demonstrated. Not only on that particular site, but on the CNNs that I showed you, the Chives, and any of the 2.5 million sites, we begin to learn a little bit about what your interests are. So if you happen to be on a sports site, but perhaps there's like a knitting side of that site, and we know you have a proclivity to trend towards knitting content. You might see a knitting reference on a sports page if the site happens to be designed that way. With the idea of connecting you with the content that you want, and sometimes even the individuals who influence you. So you might see people in there who you follow as well. As I mentioned, there's a promoted content as well. Certainly doesn't apply to everybody, in fact, probably a much smaller portion. But this year, Disqus decided to, we've always offered a free product, but we've decided to turn off any kind of SaaS payment model, and any site of any size can now use our service for free. And we monetize our platform exclusively through promoted content. Again, it doesn't make sense for everybody, but what it does do is it sort of turns us from a cost center into a profit center. And if you're a blogger and your content you deem to be very valuable, you can turn that on and hopefully someday we help you kind of make that a business for yourself. Again, zero integration work. No matter which option you choose, it's just literally a checkbox in our admin controls, which are kind of house moderation as well as the different settings. Don't forget mobile. I say this because mobile can be kind of a pretty critical component for some sites, some applications. We have an out-of-the-box responsive design. This is on the Atlantic, where we kind of auto-adapted. You notice there were horizontal recommendations before. Here there are vertical recommended content above the promoted content, and the comments sort of auto-adapt themselves to the dimensions. We recognize the device and make sure that we sort of format it in the right way. And as we've seen traffic increase in mobile, it's gone up actually 3x over the last 18 months or so. It's become more and more important to have sort of a mobile-specific product. We're actually updating this in the next month or so. But again, it's full feature parity, won't interrupt your site. It loads asynchronously, so we make sure that we load everything on typically slow networks after all of your content, no matter what it is, multimedia or whatever, has loaded before us. And then you have the ability to make money through content recommendations, again, if that's a business item. Just wrapping up, if you guys are interested, you can certainly talk to me afterwards, but how you would install if you're on WordPress, we have a plugin, version 2.74, which was updated, I think, in January or February this year. It allows you a whole bunch of functionalities that other CMSs don't make available to us, so WordPress has been an awesome partner for as long as we've been around. But if you happen to be on Disqus and want to find how to integrate it with your WordPress platform, we have instructions for how to download the plugin, etc. So that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about, but again, just kind of under the theme of sort of how you kind of power your site and make it more powerful. But if you have kind of a more community-oriented site, how I think Disqus kind of helps make that possible. Where we've been historically focused, almost exclusively in commenting, we're now trying to make it a much more sort of engaging experience beyond just the discussion for sites. And I guess we had a few minutes for questions, right? Yeah. Sure.
So, for Disqus, is it accessible for people with disabilities? I think it's very important, to consider, because a lot of people on WordPress, some of the plugins are not accessible. So I just want to make sure Disqus is accessible.
It is very accessible. I can't remember what the specific regulatory number and letter is, but we do hit everything. In fact, we've had, when we launched this specific platform, which was an upgrade to our old one, I think the very first commenter was from somebody who had hearing disability, in fact, or actually, sorry, was was blind and was able to comment for the first time with this platform. So it's very accessible. We take that very seriously. So if you ever do use it and find any shortcomings, we'd be certainly happy to hear about them.
And what about the colors? Can you change the colors at all? Because it's also important sometimes the color contrast for some people, and some web sites are designed in a way that where the color contrast is very bad. It's really hard to see the content?
Sure. Yeah, so one thing that we've done to make it really, really, really simple is we've unified across all sites spatially where all the buttons are. What we found is that when buttons are in the same place, whether it's a share button, upvote, downvote, flag, looking into someone's profile, replying to comments, when there's uniformity across all platforms, we saw engagement climb like 30 or 40%. And this was in an environment where we used to allow significant customizations. The balance that we found was on the publisher side, we actually read the style sheets within the HTML of each page that we render on. And we auto-adapt to like the background, the font, the link colors to really make it just, you drop the JS code on the page and it looks like your site. We have a couple modifications if the contrast happens to be, or if your site happens to be sort of an off color and the contrast doesn't feel right, there are a couple configurations that you can change.
Thank you.
How do you dig in between publishers and Disqus for promoted revenues, promoted content revenues?
How do we do what?
How do you separate revenue streams for publishers that are using to have the checkbox turned off for promoted content? In other words, how do you separate revenues for Disqus and for the publisher? Or is there a process for that?
Yeah, so we do it automatically on our end. We do it automatically on our end. We have kind of a, you can certainly read our terms and conditions where we sort of work in an AdSense style where we don't publicly disclose, but we do a rev share, and it's based on a CPC model where it's a bidding model where publishers, basically bid for placement on certain sites. Some can be more valuable than others, and we'll do a rev split based on what that advertiser paid for that placement.
So I don't know if it's just my website or what happened with the latest update I did for WordPress. All the Disqus on its way. It was the Disqus.
She wants to discuss content. She wants to
Yeah,
discuss
it's
content
not-
latest
it's
upgrade.
not- I know it's activated, but it's just not showing up.
So you activate it on your site and it's not showing up.
I mean, it was fine until the last WordPress update.
Huh. I'm not sure we've seen any kind of universal problem with that. Do you know when you updated it specifically?
Yeah, a month ago.
Yeah, we haven't seen any recent upticks and any issues. I'd be happy to kind of give you my card and send you to our support team. Rest assured, we don't erase content unless you delete your account, so you have no fear of losing any content. It's certainly in our data stores. And if it's not there today, you can certainly restore anything that seems to be missing now.
So in regards to that comment recently about losing comments, is Disqus compatible with any kind of backup system? For example, if I'm using, I think I'm using WordPress or back WordPress up or something like that, is it compatible with that?
I'm not sure specifically what that is, but one feature that we have, which is automatically turned on when you use the WordPress plugin, is auto-syncing of comments to your own data stores. Some publishers choose to turn that off because they just don't want to keep that in their own repositories if it takes up gigabytes worth of space. We certainly have backup copies, but with specifically the WordPress plugin, we automatically push all the comments to your own repositories, so you can feel rest assured that you have your own content there. But again, you can always turn it off. I think it's within the WordPress panel.
But so if I were I'm using back WordPress up, it would be nice if I could really back up everything that I'm basically using, all the content.
Like any kind of metadata, like usernames, upvotes, downvotes.
Well, right. So because back WordPress up is a plugin that I'm using for that purpose, for backup of WordPress.
Specifically for Disqus comments?
No. For my WordPress. That's why I'm wondering if Disqus also has automatic, backup with, compatible with WordPress, basically. in one plugin? Because I don't want to have to use so many plugins. So that's why I'm wondering if I just switch.
Oh,
I think I understand.
okay.
So that WordPress up, the backup plugin you're using, I believe it backs up your data and your plugin. So it'll back up the Disqus plugin itself. It also backs up the comments on your site. But Disqus syncs the comments to their service at disqus.com. And they back up all their stuff separately on their servers and keep it there. So
it sounds like it might be a redundancy even. It might be, we have a data store, you have a data store through the WordPress plugin, or Disqus WordPress plugin, plus there's another backup copy.
But so Disqus would be a separate platform that you're using. Wouldn't be on my server. It would be on your own, right?
Disqus is a hosted service. It's a hosted service. It's a service that you're embedding in your
Right, and so the comments on your server would be stored there. Yes?
Yes, we always keep a copy of your content
On your server, not on my server.
on our servers. We back them up in our own servers,
okay.
yeah. But we also duplicate them automatically on your own servers so that you have a backup copy with the WordPress plugin.
See, because I don't want to have too many plugins. I'm trying to really minimize and use only the plugins that I truly need.
These are not duplicates. One is a backup plugin and one is a commenting plugin. They're totally separate. And he's not duplicating. You're not really duplicating.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let me just.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Your regular WordPress comments are being synced to the Disqus comments, correct? Sort of.
If you're using WordPress for comments, then no.
Oh, okay. Then it's just Disqus.
Only if you use Disqus comments. The configuration that we've designed with WordPress is we will automatically sync all the comments and content that's in our data stores to your own local data stores, so that you can be ensured that you have a copy of all the content that's produced in the comment section on your site.
So, but my question though is, if I'm adding Disqus in WordPress comments, so I can turn it off in WordPress and just use Disqus, is that correct?
You could turn that off for commenting because we host the comments and give you a copy of them anyway.
But it's not going to back up the rest of the site. I think that's what the question is. Is it going to back up our whole site?
No. It only backs up the comment content that lives within the Disqus module.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what sort of filters are there in the dash for like, users, profanity, or even spam, for instance? Let's say you have you're difficulty with an individual user with profanity or flaming or...
Sure. We actually have a kind of an interesting thing because we're sort of a network platform and people's profiles persist across any number of sites that they comment on that use Disqus.
That was my next question: was how many and which ones?
How many in which ones?
Platforms and which ones? Like, how can you coordinate easily? What other platforms do you most easily coordinate with? Was going to be my next question. So,
Okay, well, as far as we have a spam filter which is proprietary, which uses signal from all 2.5 million sites that use Disqus. So what we can do is identify spammers in some corner of our network and unilaterally block those individuals on our own accord across all 2.5 million sites. If they're truly spammers, the people who are like, you can make $5,000 a month. On top of that, we have this thing called the user reputation system, which is sort of something that's on our end and we manage. But what we do is we look at signal from the thread experience. So a person, if they get upvoted, downvoted, flagged, what frequencies, what ratios, as well as a person's signal on the moderator end. Does this person get marked as spam by the moderator a lot? Do their comments get deleted? And we use all this signal to basically create a score for that person. And what we do in the front end to sort of improve user experience is we surface all the best comments and commenters to the top of an article thread and push people who have a history of sort of toxic or negative participation lower and lower down in the thread. And that's always active. What we also do in the back end for moderators is we don't show a specific score, but we'll show you the history of a person, not only on your site, but more broadly across the web where they've participated. So the first time that person comes to your site and comments, you can see this person has had a profile for 3 years, they have 1,000 comments, they got flagged in my site 3 times, but over the thousands of comments they've made, you know, that's almost a rounding error. That just must be somebody who has a small gripe. Sometimes you'll see somebody who it's their first day as a commenter, and they suddenly have 100 comments, and you know that they're a spammer. So if we haven't gotten rid of them already, you certainly can then. We also have word filters that you can populate in perpetuity and ongoing. And you can block people according to email address, username, and IP address even, if they try to kind of game that system.
One more question? Anyone? Great.